an insult, if it's even considered an insult at all. But anyways, I digress. So on another note, another thing that I thought was very interesting that I wanted to share with you guys is that during her interview with John Fuda, Kim D asked John if he had heard of the rumor of Teresa and Louie and Melissa Pfeister getting into it at BravoCon. So I did cover that extensively in my last week episode. So you can just go back to that one and you can actually listen to the recording that was deleted since, right? They had a podcast on Thursday, an emergency podcast about the whole situation. So just to make a long story short, allegedly some fans have seen or heard Melissa Pfeister getting yelled at by louieruelas at BravoCon. And then another layer of that I was not aware of, Kim D said to John Fuda that she had heard as well that Teresa yelled at Louie and said, allegedly obviously, and said, "Stay out of my business." Kim also said that she doesn't know if that part is true or not, but she did say that on her podcast. So then John said that, several fans had came to him as well and kind of said that this incident took place. He could not, however, confirm or deny if it actually did, as he was not present when this happened, allegedly. So Kim D goes into, talking about Melissa Pfeister and says that she knows that Teresa has a very close relationship with her. And then she talks about her own relationship with Melissa. I'm not sure if all of you guys know this, but Melissa has another podcast called Side Piece, and Kim D says to John Fuda that she was a guest on Melissa Pfeister's podcast at some point in time, maybe one of the first, if not the first. So when Kim said that, I don't know why I wanted to do a little bit more digging. I told you guys that before. I tend to retain useless information at time. I don't know why my brain is like this, but sometimes I hear something and it just sits at the back of my head, and then later on someone says something and it just triggers it, right? So I don't know if you guys recall, Teresa had a podcast on Namaste Bitches with obviously her co-host Melissa Pfeister, and the episode, actually I have it here, it's called it's the July 26, 2023 episode called Pics with Sofia Vergara. And I'm gonna play a little audio clip for you guys, and I'm just gonna come back after to discuss it. So here it is.
This is teresagiudice, and I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Melissa Pfeister. Dude, why you get me all excited? What's up, you guys? What's up, my Namaste bitches? Teresa, I love you even more every time you add in that little beautiful, beautiful word. You look beautiful. You messed up my workout schedule today. Oh, it's okay. I know, and I'm still beautiful. Look, she's mad at me, you guys, and she still has the beautiful smile. She's calling me beautiful. Like, I'm asking her, can she do earlier, guys? Then she doesn't answer me. Then she changes her schedule to do earlier for you. Yeah, but I just asked, can you? And then you're supposed to say yes, and then I'll say, okay, let me see if I can do it. That's how it goes, back and forth. You just don't change it without asking me first, because then I had to ask my trainer if there was anything else. Capiche? You guys, let's take a vote. My new trainer, she's like, she's like, I have to say, she's the best trainer I've ever had. Because, you see my body, it looks really, she's like amazing. And she's all about form, and now, I never knew, the way I was doing things before, it was wrong. So it's all about form, guys. It's all about holding your core down. Yes, and it's all about, before I used to just work it to bang it out. No, you have to, when you work out, you have to do it the right way. And make sure technique is very important, and your form and everything, and the way you do things, because it could hurt you down the road. Right. If you're not working out the right way. Right. So you guys. Anyway, this is the story that Teresa started. Teresa said, "Can we please record earlier?" just being proactive and being an amazing, loving co-host friend.
Yeah, but she's supposed to check with me first. What I was trying to say, my trainer is, she's hot. No, meaning like she's hot, like everybody wants her, so her schedule is booked. I could get in only when she tells me I could get in. So it's like, and now it's summertime. It's a pain in the ass. It's like, I'm going to start working now. So it's like, I don't know if I can fit her into my schedule,
Oh my gosh, you guys, we just talked for 5 minutes about a bunch of nonsense. Good morning.
But anyway, I love her. So what are we talking about today? Let's get right into it.
You are freaking correct.
Okay, so that was the recording, guys. And I know some of you are probably thinking, okay, Stella, you just played this little audio clip, and so what? What is it about what they said? Seems pretty playful to me. What's the deal, right? And you know what, guys? You're right. That's how I felt too. When I listened to the podcast back then, I was just like, oh, they're just having a little bit of fun with each other. There's a little bit of a misunderstanding around the scheduling of the podcast and that kind of stuff. They're pulling each other's legs a little bit, but no big deal, right? It seemed quite playful to me. However, it reminded me of an August 1st episode. Dana Wilky had a different opinion than mine when I didn't even have an opinion back then about the little banter between Melissa and Teresa on their podcast, until I heard something from Dana. And it's in her Patreon, so I cannot play the audio clip. But I can tell you verbatim what was said when it comes to that little banter between the two ladies. So I thought I would just read you a transcript of what Dana Wilky had to say regarding that little banter between Teresagiudice and her co-host Melissa Pfeister on her August 1st episode. As I said, I will not play the recording, but just trust that this is verbatim what was said at the time. So here it is. I'm going to read you a little extract. Recently, Teresagiudice got upset with Melissa Pfeister. It was the episode that she talks about Sofia Vergara. And she says that Sofia is a bitch, that she didn't want to take a picture with Teresagiudice. And so she did reluctantly. And Teresa took offense because she said to her publicist, why? Why did you have me take a picture with that woman? And then Teresa heard it and was like, felt disrespected. Or whatever. Anyways, what happened is she's pissed at Melissa because she asked Melissa to move the Namaste Bitches recording for their podcast like an hour or two. And instead of Melissa coming back and confirming, yes, I can move it up, she just moved it up. So she tried to be proactive to facilitate Teresa, which, by the way, pretty much sums up the relationship. Teresa is essentially like a dominatrix over Melissa. And Melissa is very kind and nice. And I don't even know how she's managing Teresa's personality. Now, I've had interaction with Melissa, for real. And I know how good she is. So I was kind of pissed when I heard Teresa talking derogatory to her on her show. So unnecessary. And anyway, she was really bossy towards her. And it pissed me off. So full disclosure. So I remember when Dana said this, because, that was her opinion on her podcast, and she was a little upset, a little pissed, like I referenced in the transcript, she was upset that Teresa was speaking to Melissa Pfeister in that manner, right? And I remember at the time I was thinking, well, I listened to the podcast too, and I didn't feel like Teresa was being aggressive towards Melissa. I didn't feel like she was being mean towards her or belittling her. I just felt like, Teresa is just being Teresa, and she's just, the ladies are laughing, they're kind of making a joke out of it. So I didn't take it seriously. But now, in light of the allegations of what took place at BravoCon, now that, there was like apparently people seeing or hearing Melissa and Louie allegedly get into it at BravoCon, and Teresa getting upset as well, now it's providing me with a different perspective. And now I'm thinking, what if Dana wasn't just speculating or wasn't just giving her opinion at the time? Maybe Dana was in the know about something back then. Maybe Dana was already trying to give us insight into the dynamic or the relationship between the two podcasters, Melissa and Teresa. Because now it's making sense to me. I'm thinking, Dana was on Melissa Pfeister's podcast before, Side Piece. She has talked about her and said that they're friends and that they talk and that she really, really, really likes her. She thinks that she's very funny. So now I'm thinking, is it possible that maybe, just maybe, and this is my opinion, guys, maybe Melissa feels a certain way, and maybe she had a conversation in private with her friend Dana and truly voiced to her how she feels with Teresa, in her relationship with Teresa on the podcast. Melissa always strikes me as the kind of person who's like super happy. I've said it before, like she hypes a lot of things and she's just always in a good mood, right? And she's like a ball of energy. But what if she wasn't truly stating how she feels? It's possible that Melissa might have felt belittled or undermined at times, during the podcast with Teresa, or maybe she feels like her time is not perceived as valuable as Teresa's time on the podcast, right? Maybe she feels like, she has to jump through hoops and accommodate Teresa a lot in order for them to have this podcast together. So now I'm starting to think that maybe Melissa, like a good girlfriend would do, she was maybe frustrated and maybe had a conversation with Dana privately and said to her, you know what, I really didn't like the way that Teresa talked to me on this podcast. She was saying that I need to change my entire schedule around her schedule and all of that. And I was trying to be proactive, and I was trying to be a good friend, and I was trying to be a good co-host. But at the same time, she's talking to me like in this rough way, yada, yada, yada. It's possible. It's very possible. And now I'm starting to think of another thing, because if you listen to the deleted audio that is still available in my last episode, guys, Melissa Pfeister, she says at the beginning, she talks about Louie, and she says, Louie loves us, like he's my family, Teresa's my family, he supports us. What does that mean? What does that mean, Louie supports us? Is it just like his support as a husband to Teresa and a friend to Melissa, towards the podcast? Or is it a financial support when it comes to the podcast, like Namaste Bitches? Or does he oversee some of the operation of the podcast? And it's possible that if that is the case, maybe that is a little suffocating for Melissa. And maybe the rumor about the altercation at BravoCon has some legs, right? If Louie really has a say in their podcast, in their business, and kind of like, controls like certain aspects of it all, right? Because at this point, what I'm starting to realize from the deleted audio from last week is that Melissa has had a lot of the Bravo celebrities on her other podcast, Side Piece. And again, she even says this, she prides herself in not taking side and being positive, giving people the benefit of the doubt and, chances and that kind of stuff. She's not about the drama. That's not what her podcast is about, Side Piece, right? So you could tell that for Melissa, it is very important to cherish those relationships within the Bravo network. That's why when she said to Teresa, yes, I speak with Tamra. Yes, I speak with Margaret. Yes, I speak with Margaret's mom. I've had these people on my podcast. Like, I like them. I don't want to be dragged into this, right? But Teresa does not necessarily have the best of relationship with any of these people, right? Another thing that it made me think of, Melissa has had, Frank Catania. She's had him, and I referenced this in my earlier episodes, guys, but for those of you who have not listened to it, she has had Frank Catania on Side Piece on a multitude of occasions. And they have the best dynamic. Like, they laugh. She loves Frank Catania. I think she says that he's like her favorite. She's so happy he's back on her show. And they have like a pretty good chemistry. But lately, Teresa and Frank Catania don't necessarily have the best of relationship. After season 13 wrap, Teresa did an episode with Melissa Pfeister, and she is kind of being mean towards Frank Catania, Big Frank. She is saying that basically he is thirsty, that, his involvement at the reunion just really has to do with him wanting to stay on the show, and that he will do anything because he is not relevant anymore because he's no longer with Dolores Catania, because Dolores is now with Pauly. So she says, he's been on the show for all of these years, and now he's probably seeing himself like kind of like phasing out of the show. Therefore, he needs to find some sort of drama so he can stay on, right? That's what Teresa said about Frank. And at the time, they didn't have the podcast where you could actually see them on camera, Teresa and Melissa. So it was all audio. So all I had as cues of that conversation was their voice, their voices, like Melissa and Teresa. So I'm missing the nonverbal cues, right? And Melissa seemed a little bit uncomfortable when Teresa said this, because Melissa loves Frank Catania. So all she said was just kind of like, But you could hear that she was uncomfortable with the fact that Teresa was not being very nice towards Frank. And I have to say, even for my own part, I thought that was kind of like a little bit of a shitty comment coming from Teresa, given the fact that Frank has said nothing bad about Teresa in all of the seasons that he has been on. In fact, he has defended her to even Dolores and Siggy against the whole thing with Kim D at the Posh Fashion Show and all of that. Like, he stood for Teresa. He stood up for her. And then, when she was going through that fitness competition, he was very generous with his time, and he helped train her and to get her to where she needed to be, right, in that competition and all of that. So I thought it was very unfortunate that at the time when Teresa recorded the podcast with Melissa, that she did not seem to recall all of the nice things that Big Frank had done for her. But anyways, what else is new when it comes to that situation? But anyways, guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think now, in light of everything that has transpired since the BravoCon alleged altercation, do you think that Melissa Pfeister may have opened up to Dana Wilky